probably the accidental author, and I am sitting here with the wonderful SteveTwartz, who is a new author and just got his hands very recently on his book, The Veiled Thread. Steve, hello.
Hello. Hello, Andrew. It's really good to talk to you.
Mate, good on you. How exciting.
It is exciting. It's just it's the culmination of so many years of creating stuff, and now I've got a book in my hands. It's just wonderful.
And that isn't that a beautiful description of what it is? It's stuff. I mean, really, that's what a book is. It's stuff in a book. So, mate, why don't you hold it up and show everyone your new book?
This is The Veiled Thread, and it's a story about two men, and a grandfather and a grandson, and with a background. The deep background is the background of epigenetics, and that's inherited trauma. So yeah, it's a drama. It's an adventure. Yeah.
Sounds intriguing, mate. So why don't we just? I guess the first thing I want to ask you is when did this idea take birth in your brain that you wanted to write a book, and tell us a little bit about the journey.
Okay, the journey started with my grandfather, and my grandfather was a light horseman in the First World War in Palestine. He wrote a book. It wasn't about the war. What the book was about was his life, and it was really just a series of anecdotes. And those anecdotes he cobbled together into a book that was never published. I started looking at that book, and I realised that what was coming out in his writing was a mass of stuff about his life, about the traumas that he'd had in his life, and how he related to people. And that started me thinking about how his life could possibly have influenced mine. And that's when I started to look at the phenomenon of epigenetics and inherited trauma. And when I started to look at that phenomenon, it became, it started to get, I started to get a feel about why I was reacting in certain ways to certain stimulus. And in anger, in depression, in all of those sorts of things, and that's the point at which I started to weave a story around my grandfather's story in a fictional setting. It's and it involves two people, as I said, the grandfather and the grandson. So. What I started to believe and started to understand was how much of yourself goes into writing a book. You can't avoid that, and you don't want to avoid that. You've got to bring out yourself in your writing, and otherwise the characters aren't believable. Yeah,
totally. So when did this all start, mate? How long ago?
This started probably 5 year ago, 6 years ago.
Okay.
It started at no, actually a bit more than that, probably 7 years ago. It started at a very traumatic part of my life when I was in danger of losing my wife to breast cancer. And we retreated, so to speak, to this little part of the world where we live now. And I started to write. And my first attempt at writing was very poor. It was just really just stream of consciousness writing. It didn't have enough structure. It didn't have it didn't have enough focus. And it took me several goes to slim it down into something that was very focused.
Well, mate, join the club. I think every author will tell you that their first effort at writing is terrible. So some of the best authors in the world will tell you that their first draft was shocking. So, mate, you're in very, very good company.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now tell me, 5, 7 years down the track, you've only really just received the book, you know, only in the last week or so as we speak. How did that feel, opening up that box and pulling that book out and feeling that?
Books, yes, it is. And then being able to hold it up and say, well, I did that. I did. And other people are going to read it and enjoy it. Yeah, it's thrilling. I can tell you now.
That's good, mate. So, I mean, who do you think's your audience? Who do you see the people that are going to enjoy your book the most? What sort of readers are you looking for? I mean, obviously, you're looking for as many readers as you can get, but what do you think?
Look, I think it's a broad readership. It's from young readers. The thing I was told very early in the piece was keep your prose, keep your narrative straightforward, your language relatively simple, so that what that opens up is a fairly broad readership. So from late teens, early 20s through to 60, 70, 80-year-olds, because there's something in there for everybody.
What is that? Well, I mean, what do you feel like your readers are going to get out of it when they finish reading it? How are they going to feel? What's that emotion they're going to experience?
I think there are a range of emotions. What I've tried to do in the book is vary the emotions from deep drama, because there is a lot of drama in the grandfather's life, particularly, and the grandson as a result. So there's they should be feeling a lot of empathy towards these people, but also there's a lot of adventure in it too. In that they do some really quite interesting things, particularly in the war. I've done a lot of research on the First World War, particularly the Light Horsemen and so on. So there's a lot of drama associated with. There's a family drama. There's a lot of rancor that comes out. A lot of angst that is displayed by the family when they start to grapple with the thread that epigenetic thread that is going through the generations. So people will feel sad, people will feel happy. There's humour, they'll laugh, but overall, I think they'll get to the end of the book and say, well, hopefully, that I want to read the second one, because the second one should carry the story on and into an even broader story, a story that involves us all, really.
Sounds intriguing, mate. And I think hopefully people watching this are going to go, yay, I'm going to get a copy, and we'll talk about where to get a copy. And it also sounds like you've got a fair bit of history in there as well. So around the First World War and a lot of history, and as you said, the Light Horse Brigade. So for people that like those historical fiction type books, and I think there's a lot of people that are into that side of things. So good, mate. Now let's talk a bit more about the journey. Tell us about what were some of your challenges as you were writing the book, getting it to this point where you're now a published author?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, the greatest challenge in writing, at least it was for me, was persistence, and that persistence is from establishing a daily task. And I know, Andrew, you've talked about this before yourself, and at length. It's to set a goal for yourself, a daily goal, to sit down, and even if you don't write words on a daily basis, sit or think about what you're going to write. Do the research, because there are, particularly with historical novels, there's a fair amount of research that you have to do to get it accurate, because the last thing you want is a reader to say, well, hang on a second, that wasn't right. You've got that entirely wrong. So persistence. It's the persistence on a daily basis to get your head down and write, even if it's 5 words. You've written those 5 words in the day, and you've thought about what it is, and that'll carry you through to the next day. So do that every day. Run that task, and that was one of the things, Andrew, that you gave me very early in the piece when I was rewriting the book to the form that it is now. It's also persistence at the back end when you've written the book. Let's say you've had it edited, and you want somebody to pick it up and publish it. Now, this is where absolute persistence, and you, Andrew, you kept on telling me, submit, and that's exactly what I did. I must have submitted 50 times or more, and then nothing seemed to happen, and then I got a flood of people that were interested in it, and at least half a dozen people came back to me and said, well, hang on a second, we'd like to give this a go. It's terribly difficult for first-time authors to get people interested, because we're not a guaranteed market. We're not a guaranteed revenue stream for any sort of publisher. So there's an amount of faith that a publisher has to have in the product that you've created, and you've got to have faith in that too. And you've always said that to me, Andrew. You've said, have faith in your product, keep on submitting, because one day somebody will come along and they will want to pick that up for whatever reason. And there are many reasons why rejections are rejections. And 9 times out of 10, they don't tell you why. They just said, no, we're not interested in that book. But if you think you've written a good book, keep on going. That's what
Mate, that's what, mate, you've just taught people the secret to success in life, really, haven't you?
Yeah.
Belief, have faith in yourself, and keep going because it is a predictable outcome, right? I mean, the only reason why most people that decide to write a book don't get published because they give up at some point of the journey, whether it's in the writing stage, the editing stage, submitting stage. They stop trying. They tell themselves a story that they're not good enough, that'll never happen. And you told yourself a story that it will happen, and that's why it did. So, mate, all credit to you. Fantastic.
Yeah, and I hope it keeps on going, because I've got so many creative ideas.
And this is such an exciting time. I remember, when I had my first book, and it was just the most exciting time just to get it out there and listen to other people's opinion of it, and to see it in bookshops, and that was such an exciting time. So, mate, I guess you talked about the second that's on the way, I'm assuming.
Yes, the first one's the veiled thread, and the second one will be called the severed cord. Now, the whole idea behind that is that the characters reach a set of decision points. The second book is not entirely about the first group of people. The grandfather is no longer there, but his descendants are, and they're coming to a realization of really what those influences on their life are, and influences on their behaviour, their patterns of life, their acceptance of certain things in their lives. So, the second book is a definite sequel. It concentrates on a different character, and the first book has the prologue and the first chapter, so you can take a look at that. Yeah.
Good one, mate. That's fantastic. Mate, well done. Congratulations, Steve, on your first book and many more to come. Now, people that want to get their hands on it, where do they do that?
They can, it's with Book Depository, Amazon, Booktopia, Fish Pond, Dimmix. Dimmix have got it as well. So all of those major distributors have. Also, they can order it directly from the Pegasus publisher's website. That's a UK publisher.
Yep.
And they can also go to my website, and my website's SteveTwartz.com.au. It's here in Australia, of course. And yes, you can register your interest, and I'll sort that out for you. Okay?
Brilliant. That's wonderful. SteveTwartz, author. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wonderful, mate. And I know it's going to be a huge success, and we'll look forward to talking to you when you're holding that the severed cord in your hand.
That's right. Yeah.
Brilliant, mate. Well done.
And thank you, Andy.